Hey everyone, welcome to the Geo Community Call for June 15th. We've got an exciting week ahead. Super excited for everything that's coming. We've got some new things we're going to be releasing. Um, so it's going to be an exciting week. It feels like a bit of a vibe shift already. Looks like we may have a peace deal in Iran. Um, Getting some good coverage of that on the World Affairs space. So thanks for people who were on over the weekend, keeping things updated as big things are happening in the world. And so for today, we've got a bunch of things that we want to cover. We'll start with our typical updates, um, see what people have been doing over the last week, and then want to have some discussion around um, governance and some of the things around workflows that people are using to publish content, vote on things, see how we can make some things better there. So have an open discussion about that. And then talk a bit about some of the stuff that is coming this week. So that's the plan. Arturis, do you want to kick us off with looking back section?
Let's take a look. So here from the last week in the content land, in the AI space, we have Hasnat, the curator of the week. And of course, the big update is the Claude Fable 5, the Mythos class model. What a roller coaster. Model release, we have some claims right here about how it got released. Then pricing and availability, like 2x the price of Opus seems like. And so the pricing is much higher, but also could have done a lot more things. Safeguards and safety, that's a bit of a controversy right here we have. It was, we got quite a bit of pushback for the fact that they were just deciding what kind of things you can work on. One thing I found interesting was there's this one claim that the fact that you can't work on AI with it, the fact you can't work on like help on it, like actually is a great opportunity to build on the blockchains with it. Software engineering capabilities. So the capabilities right here, drag and design applications, knowledge, work and vision, data retention and privacy, and of course, the suspension of Fable 5. The US government issued an export control directive ordering Anthropic to suspend foreign nationals' access, and they ended up pausing it for everyone. We kind of got to see a little bit of the greatness and got taken away from us. We'll see how it continues to develop. We got the benchmarks right here, as always. And the editor, Kathleen, also curated some reactions. And like I would say, like I can show two as like a highlight. Andrew Karpathy had a tweet, somewhat positive. Claude Fable represents a major advancement in AI capabilities, and I see definitely that's true. And a tweet right here with some criticisms. You're not even allowed to ask Fable about basic biology questions. Now, I myself saw like a few tests where you just write the word cancer and you get pushed back to Opus. So here's some good data we have here. Gonna be exciting to see the further developments, but man, it was some fun like playing around while we had it. And the next one is we have the compute chips and AI infrastructure. So we have a list of the hardware, kind of a hot topic, especially as there is a race happening. And organized, we have the NVIDIA AI accelerators and some information about each. Intel accelerators, AMD, Google, tensor processing units. If we take a look at the full page, we actually see that we have even more data about that. So we have the performance, memory bandwidth, memory capacity, We have the cooling methods, hardware architecture, interconnect technology, manufacturers, and memory technology. So a rather complete data set of an important component of the current hardware race. So that's in the AI. After that, let's give a bit of a time for Catalin to showcase some of his work as well. But that's a work in the AI space. Then in the crypto space, so we have a few trending topics right here, and some work has been done on the 2026 DeFi hack crisis, as we're calling it here in Geo. And so major exploits listed, amount lost. And here are some claims organized for different aspects of what's going on right here. So how crisis unfolded, and here's the claims of what was happening. More than 600 million was lost in DeFi hacks in April 2026. According to DeFi Llama data, over 885 million was lost to hacks in the first 6 months, etc. Then we have attribution to the North Korea's Lazarus group and some claims about that. Like, what does that mean, and how do we know about the perpetrators? And then we have the industry and protocol responses. So some information about how different protocols are trying to manage the situation right here. And we have the projects involved. We have the security researchers, protocol founders, and executives that are most relevant to this. And here we can see all of the new stories that are coming out as things develop, the last one being June 9th. So that's the update right here. Also, we can, just real quick, there is a tab for exploits, and we can see all of the exploits that we're curating here. And these are also organized, compromised, private, and admin keys. These are organized by the attack vector, right? So social engineering ones, bridge proof, forgery, smart contract bugs, Oracle manipulation, governance attacks, unequal source clause. These ones we don't know. But so, okay, for anyone following this, like, that's a good page to browse around and take a look. So that's that. And still in the crypto space, notable network expansion. So we did show before the networks that we were curating. There's been additional work done and an expansion was made. So the page sort of got quite a bit of an improvement. The networks, notable layer 1, layer 2 blockchains, privacy chains, data networks, gaming consumer chains, etc., categorized by layer architecture, layer 1s, layer 2, ZK rollups. That's the GMO work. So layer 1s, 2s, ZK rollup, domestic rollups right here. And some work done on aggregators. So we have the aggregators organized, smart routing aggregators, intent-based aggregators, cross-chain aggregators, wallet integrated aggregators right here. And also some work done our organizing projects around privacy and identity. It's quite a bit of a topic in crypto especially. So crypto privacy projects, we have all of them. If we can take a look at the general data we have available for them. We have the docs. For some, we have some data more than others, but EMV compatible, explore URLs, GitHubs, etc. And this specific one highlight is more for the organization. So we have the crypto privacy tools and also specifically crypto privacy wallets, which are also considered to be crypto privacy tools, but just to add an additional subcategorization right here. So a lot of work has been done in general to just improve the organization of things, which is a big part of managing a space. So that's some work there. And moving forward in the world affairs space, 2 notes, Iran war. So quite a good and in-depth organization of what's happening with the war at this point. So we have key claims right here. These are the highest, sort of most relevant to take a look at. We have the key people and the latest news stories. But what's more interesting right here is a really deep organization of the news stories that we're generating and publishing to Geo every day, including about the Iran war. So here we have the military operations and strikes, Straits of Hormuz crisis, diplomacy, ceasefire and peace talks, nuclear program, sanctions, economics, and markets. But this doesn't end there. So for any of these tabs that cover a very important aspect, we have a deeper classifications of these stories. So we have direct combat actions, for example, under military operations, right? And these are the new stories that have to do with the direct combat actions. Then we have the Iranian counterstrikes and retaliatory attacks, new stories specifically about that, naval operations, etc. And this is the same for everything. So if we go to Strait of Hormuz, we have like a summary, the key claims from the stories, but then we go in and we have the Hormuz closure and shipping and everything about that. We have the oil prices and energy markets. We have the Gulf infrastructure attacks, etc. And this goes for everything right here for like diplomacy, ceasefire, and peace talks. We have the Pakistan mediation stories, proposals, etc. And also, FIFA World Cup 2026 is a trending topic. It is a part of world affairs, like, a kind of a unifying language for people to talk about across different countries. And so we have the key claims, but also we have key figures as well, latest news there. And if we take a look at the timeline, so these are organized news stories also by different segments. So we have visa and access crisis, which was an interesting thing, tickets and attendance, relevant, politics and controversy, match results as well. So all of this, organized tournament overview and records, etc. And also we can take a quick look at the people. So these are the curated list of relevant people for the FIFA World Cup. So we have the players, we have the coaches, political figures, football association figures, and cultural figures for the ambassador, for the performers, etc. So that's the world affairs. And finally, Georgia primary elections. We have the runoff tomorrow. So we have the key claims and latest news, Democratic primary, Republican primary, campaign finance, key politicians organized as the story is developing in real time. That's on the highlights from the last week.
All right, awesome. Looking really good. Great work, everyone. Super exciting. So yeah, great to see just things continuing to take more shape and getting polished. It's consistently better every week. All right, I heard that there were maybe some more demos. We mentioned Catalan.
I'm here. Give me a second, please.
That would be great.
Yep, and Armando after that for the places space.
Can you see my
Perfect,
screen?
Yep.
So I scraped data about 300 AI models and around 4,000 evaluations, benchmark evaluations. And I've coded an app where you can search to actually one or more models. For example, let's search for Fable 5. And you can view his profile and all of his benchmarks. And they're grouped by categories. And you also have the option to compare multiple AI models by their common benchmarks. For example, let's compare with Cloud Opus for .8. And now we can see both models, and we can see their benchmark results, and we can see which one has a better score overall. And if we want, we can also add a third or fourth model. For example, let's add, and we can compare all of them. If they have common benchmark, we can add 10 or more models, and we can compare all of them. Any question? Oh, and also you can find some interesting information here, like the parameters, the context, the license, the Hugging Face page of a model, if it's available.
Yeah, that's puts the benchmark data that we have on Geo to a bit clearer, practical use case. So if we can start comparing models for benchmarks that are relevant for different parts of the project, so this could help us make decisions on which model use for which use case. So I'd say like that's a kind of consolidates the different arenas that exist for these comparisons into one place.
I agree. My main source for the data was artificial analysis, which is a website which compares multiple AI models by how they fare by the score, benchmark score. And I'm also planning to scrape OpenRoot and get more benchmark data.
Another note maybe I would add is for benchmarks, spending a bit more time on the benchmarks topic itself. And some benchmarks are not equal to other benchmarks. So that's a big part of curation, right? Like, is the fact that we can determine quality of entities compared to each other. Like there was like some interesting even benchmark controversies, right? With especially with Fable, where it was kind of looking up the answers on Git instead of like actually solving them, and that's why it got like some good results. So determining sort of benchmarks in sort of tier list by quality or relevance of how useful it is to make decisions in terms of which tool we want to be using, that might be really useful. And then
So right
on
now,
top of that,
when we add the benchmark scores, we tend to separate the benchmarks by. Let me give you an example on Geo. So we tend to have the same benchmarks with two entities. We have Chart QI Pro with no tools and Chart QI Pro with tools. And this can be a starting point in differentiating them.
Yep. Okay.
Because if the AI model has access to tools, it can find the answer easier.
So I think the overall question is, it would be, how does the benchmarks topic look on Geo, right? And if we do a really good job there, have tabs, some, organize even claims about the benchmarks, start like really, comparing like what are the benchmarks of the benchmarks, and really start comparing them, and all of that information, once we actually have like good ranking, good let's say, quality organization of the benchmarks, we can then use that to do a better informed benchmark comparisons between the models, right? So I would be interested into seeing, okay, what's the benchmark comparison between the models in a specific use case, right? Like maybe it's the coding, maybe it's knowledge work, but also specifically on the benchmarks that are considered to be the most important and most quality in the Geo AI space. I think that would be an interesting benchmark comparison.
Okay, I can work on it.
Okay, so exciting to see the fact that we can just create these apps on top of Geo is actually a huge unlock for creativity and creating some cool stuff.
Yeah, it's looking really good, and especially with the stuff happening, with Fable, I feel like more people than ever are now looking at alternative models and trying to understand, what the benchmarks are, what models are better for what the hardware requirements are, as people are looking to maybe run things themselves. So really great data to have on here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. And Armando has a demo. We're working on the very relevant space, which is the places.
So, with the help from Bashab, we work on bootstrapping the place space. We'll show you. So, Meanwhile, Claude and GPT were working, I had some time to design some image for the continents. I spent quite some time adding and organizing the region. For this, I use the AI assistant. So I start adding them, asking for description, and then I categorize them by continent and by subregions. Sorry for, we should have the subregion here. Bring them. So you can see that the subregion can be either the Balkan for Europe, Benelux, Himalayas in Asia, Middle East, Caucasus. So the hierarchy should be consolidated here, and then the big part of the work was to add covers for cities to be able to achieve this. I work on data preparation for a while, categorizing the city either by capital, by relevancy, by location, or by character, we could say, like beautifulness or typical ingredient from a city. Uh, we we tried different technique to scrape the image. One of them was to find a landmark for each city or several alternative of landmark to be able to make sure that we were coaching the relevant the podcast the postcard view the view that everybody imagine when you evoke a city. Um, so after preparing the data, we start the scraping. We scrape the several source, all copyright free. So we went for Wikimedia, Wikipedia, Wikidata, Flick. The best result for quality came from Pixel. We thought the mission would be easy, but we quickly found some issue regarding the sizing of the image and the false positive. Like it's very easy to scrape a bunch of data, but doing the triage and the cleaning of this data is not such easy. So we spend a lot of time either working with agents to score the collected data and to be able to select both the criteria were both the size because we were looking to respond to the size for the precise size of cover on Geo. And we were looking to ensure obviously the accuracy of the image. So after the programmatic triage, after the work of agents, we spent some time both also with Richard to do manual cleaning to ensure we were getting the best city. Later on, we prepared some instruction for the publication to feed the direction to agents, and we also compose with missing part of the data set like stats and like the US stats. We also face the situation, obviously, where some city we were working on were not existing in the data set. So we had them on the same model that the data set, feeding the geo, location property, the population, the name, the original name of the city, and the Wikimedia ID, etc. And after completing all of this, we make sure, so for the publication, we make sure that we were filling for each city the property continent, region, country, state for US, that we were properly tagging the cities, and we decide of a deployment order for the table. We create some tabs, and the end result look like this. You know, got all the we are supposed, maybe we are missing one, but we should have the 197 capital city of the world planet categorized by regions. We have the main US city categorized by US region also. And to end up, we have what we tagged as iconic city, which are like place of character, place of with touristic or geographic attraction. And also we have the same categorization by region, so we have 25 table by page. In total, we were able to publish and organize 1,150 cities, more or less. That was my highlight for the weekend.
All right, it's looking beautiful. Really well done. Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming. I know there's lots of different posts and articles and things that reference places, and we never really had a time to do a good job to get that space, fully usable. So it's looking really great, and the imagery is beautiful, well organized. Really good job.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, so we've got some stuff coming up this week that is going to be very relevant for. Um, so excited for that. Do we have any other demos? All right. Then let's shift to a conversation. Would love to just open the floor for any feedback on, we've been, chatting with Arturis and the team, getting feedback from people's experience, editing and publishing content to Geo. And there are two questions that have kind of come up, or, I think sometimes maybe the feedback is shared differently, but it's caused me to think through a few areas and see if we can come up with something better. And the general area for this, has to do with just making it easier for people to publish content and making it less scary and more approachable. I think especially for new users, right? It can be a little bit, unsettling to publish to public spaces, and there are some things around that flow that maybe can be improved. So the two features that we're thinking about, and I'd love to get people's feedback and get a sense for how much you think it might change your flows. If you could imagine yourself using this. So the first is called aliases. And it's something that we could use for any entity, but also for properties. So you could have property aliases. And what that would allow you to do is not have to worry about getting an initial ontology right when you first publish content. Imagine you're doing an import from CSV or really any type of content that you're creating. It's better if you can find the right existing property, but it maybe isn't as critical if we then have aliases so that you can basically map and after the fact say, actually, this thing that I published, it's the same thing as that property. And maybe somebody else can add the alias after the fact. And it allows you to remap things. And so you can basically fix the property very cheaply after the fact if you use the wrong property. So that's the first feature, aliases, property aliases. The second one is changing the flow around publishing so that you less often have to publish to public spaces, and instead you could publish to your personal spaces and then mark related spaces that then your content would get syndicated to. And that's something that you could do after the fact as well. So say you're working on a bounty, you're publishing, maybe it's a few edits to your personal space. Maybe you select a few of them and then you say, okay, now I want to send that to the crypto space or to the AI space. So with those two, would love to open it up for discussion and hear people's thoughts and what they think.
I would use the second a lot. I'm trying to think about how I would use the first, the property aliases, and I might need to see it in action a little bit maybe to understand it. But the second, I do all of my like testing and stuff in my personal space, and then once I kind of get it to a point where I feel like it's good to launch, I like take it down and then republish it. So it's a bit of a lift. Before moving things over. Like, so in that case, I would be able to publish something, have it working in my personal space, and then decide just within my personal space to port it over to Pharma. In that example, is that how that would work? And then it would create like a governance proposal to add it.
Exactly. Now, I think that spaces could have their own policies for which things need additional approval and which ones don't. So you could like auto approve everything from members of the space or auto approve everything from editors of the space, for example, potentially. Or you could say, no, we want to review everything. And so, right, if it's the latter, then it would create that proposal and the editors could vote.
Yeah, that would take
We
a
did.
whole step out of my process. That would save me a lot of time.
And we did set up with the content editors. We are working on some geo skills. And one of the main skills is the ontology MD. And basically that captures all of the canonical spaces ontology, like rules, guides, principles. So basically, if some curator or editor, let's say, does a great job within their personal space. I also like the personal space because actually, when a curator or editor is creating new content, often what happens is they do want to reference some existing content, some existing entities, and they're adding some new ones, right? And then it's getting connected. So the whole data set is kind of a mixture of those things. So you can still do that from your personal space. You can create new entities. You can reference the old ones that exist in some canonical spaces, and you can make them interconnected and everything else, like the way that you think is right. Then once you're ready, you say, okay, to the canonical space. When I push it through, you can say, here it is. I think it's ready. What we would need to do is to just check with the ontology MD file. So it would review the data and see if does it actually conform to our ontology. And if it does, okay, that's great. Let's actually push it in. So the whole process could be quite a bit automated as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Any more thoughts on this?
I think that will give more liberty to people to experiment in their own spaces and learn how Geo actually works. And I think that's the best thing.
My biggest fear when I first started was breaking Geo and then everyone kicking me out. So like I didn't want to break Geo, and the personal space is a way to not break Geo. And so even if you aren't going to break Geo by using the help data sets or whatever the case may be, for someone like me, it might feel more approachable to have the space and then to push it over. Just that eliminates a lot of friction there. So yeah, I think it's a good move.
Like that sentiment, Kevin, is like it's the one that we did hear from people, and it is the fact, right? It's a shared knowledge graph. It's like if it's a space, it already has rules. Like we did notice that there was some anxiety of like what if I'm gonna break something. One maybe just to add a bit of controversy into that. Like I personally do support the personal space approach. Like I think it does like feel really like just like kind of liberating and stuff. One thing is like we try to do a kind of a similar thing, which we created kind of like subspaces, like smaller subspaces, kind of for experimentation. We call them data sets, right? And we have like crypto data sets and health data set spaces, etc. And there we just allowed everyone to be like an editor, and they can like experiment there. Probably personal space kind of is easier to understand still, and kind of it's just your data. I do support that idea. One note is that one benefit that a data set space has that a personal space doesn't is that if it's a data set space and a person is experimenting with the data, the editors can come in and actually make some fixes on their own to that data before moving it to the canonical space. While in the personal space, we can't really help with that. Like only the curator can actually make changes to the data they're working on. So like we can't really help them and do some fixes for them. That's like one issue with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
I never have been a big fan of the data generated in the personal space and then connected to canonical one. I maybe have the impression as an user, it will give less legitimacy to the data. Like if the data hosted in and made in a canonical space means that it was approved by a pool of editor, domain expert, and so it tends to give me legitimacy. Whenever an entity is badly completed on a version that is discutable also, it will remain forever tied to the entity. And if there are no more version or no many more version, it will always show, and it can be confusing for user, like to understand which version of truth and why some people are associating their version of truth to an entity which can be very divergent of what is expected.
So which part gives you that feeling? Is it the fact that, like, let's say the first edit for that entity would show as coming from somebody's personal space? Is that by itself enough to make it feel less legitimate to
And
you?
and we do not have a way to size the reputation of the people who publish this data.
Yeah. I mean, that is something that we're looking at. But I guess the question, and I think this is the right type of thing to try to figure out. But, if let's say it's getting syndicated to a public space, it would show up as belonging to that public space. So that's the main thing, right? So let's say that, internally, I did a bunch of work on these AI models. I published that in my personal space. And let's say there's some new model and it wasn't in the AI space yet. So first I created it locally in my personal space, and then, I syndicate it, I publish it to the AI space. It would show up as being in the AI space, right? So if I'm searching, it becomes part of global search. It'll show with the top ranked space first. So I would look up this Kimi model. I would see, oh, it's in the AI space. And so that would kind of give me the trust. Now, depending on the settings of the AI space, that may or may not have gone through an additional review process. It's kind of up to the AI space to configure how they want to handle that. And so I guess to your point, if they don't have an additional review and maybe lower quality things get through, I mean, their recourse would be to remove the bad member, basically, would be an option, right? Say, hey, they keep publishing low quality stuff, let's remove the member.
The question,
Or
Also,
and the fact also, sorry, is that the data will be always like mirrored in a public space. It will never be like properly here.
That's right. It's not that it's globally showing up from the personal space. And if anything, you saw that we've started to lock things down a little bit so that we're no longer showing entities that are just in personal spaces in the global search, right? So, we're just showing the content from the public spaces now. And so that would kind of stay the same. And so we're not polluting, but it's only if, right, you publish to your personal space, you're part of the AI space, and then you publish it over, again, potentially with or without an additional layer of review, it would show up as belonging or being in the AI space.
real quick, does this mean that AI in this scenario, AI space actually just shows the data? So I just go to AI space to some like front page or any like tab, and I see some entities that are actually exist in the personal space, or is it that the AI space reviews the data from the personal space and they approve it and they kind of publish it there, which is like they create a new entity within that space?
They're not creating a new entity. So it could be either of those two things. So the outcome, regardless of whether you require an approval step or not, the outcome would be the entity would show up as being in the public space. And then there's just the question of whether they want to have that additional review step or not.
So then there might be an issue, the fact that so the data is in the AI space, we can see it. Can't people in the AI space now edit that data?
Yes, they can. So they could additionally edit it. And they're changing
even though it's in the personal space. So there is something different happening, right? Like it's not just we're showing the data, right? We are actually, the data gets published in it.
It's being aggregated. So it is essentially as if that data lives in that public space.
Yeah, so then that I do support, and that's what was my original understanding, is that basically you create the data and then you basically publish it into the space,
exactly.
Which technically is not much different than you just publishing it to the as a member to the space originally. Yep.
Yeah, it would be a new concept, but it's not very different from that. That's right.
Yeah.
I
was just gonna say it kind of sounds like this is very similar to the current functionality of Move to, and the issue with publishing things to your personal space and then moving them into other space right now is really it takes 24 hours or whatever the governance timeline is to move it over. But with the new contracts, that will be much faster. So I wonder if what we're really wanting here is just a bulk functionality for Move to, and then it would at least go through some governance. Well, create, Well, create and would copy it over to this other space. Move to would delete it in the personal space and publish it in the public space, so you don't have the duplication.
Open question: if a person maybe they would like to keep the version of the data in their personal space, and it gets moved, gets created in the public space, and then now it kind of belongs to the people. They can make edits, but maybe you want your own version, and you can keep working on it, and you can keep publishing changes. But maybe both options could be available.
Then you could do copy. I mean, also I changed it in the UI from saying create in to be copied to, so you could copy it to the other space as well. I mean, either one would function the same, more or less.
Okay.
One thing I'll say, I use it. I have a 1-to-1 copy when I try to make changes in my personal space. But one thing I will say is I try to clean it up because it can get confusing. So if I build it in my space and then port it over to Pharma, I still like to keep the data set. I like to inflate it in my space to test, right? But I remember to kind of prune and keep that data clean, because it can get kind of confusing, and then you have entities that were created in your personal space, and you move. I haven't tried Move to yet, what Preston just said, but that's what I would be looking for. Have it delete from my space and then port over so that there's not any issues. If I create an entity in my space and then move it over, though, are there any issues with it? Just chain wise, the entity got created in my space. So is it tethered to my space even if I move it over to Pharma? I've noticed when I try to delete stuff, sometimes maybe I have some issues. Maybe it was created in my space initially, and I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I've just noticed that I've had to delete stuff to keep it clean and not have issues.
A question for Preston, maybe. Would it be possible to also transfer, if for the feature Move to, could it be possible to move also the content from the block?
Yeah, I just had made a note about that. The data block content needs to get moved as well, for to properly pull everything over. And then to Kevin's point, not necessarily exactly what you were alluding to, Kevin, but there are more meta issues with Move to. For instance, we don't copy over upvotes and things like that. So you need solution for aggregation on a more lower level would maybe address some of those things. So maybe we do a combination of the two, and we'll figure out the implementation. But generally, we just wanted to get the understanding that publishing in the personal space and then getting those things either aggregated or moved over to the public spaces would help solve some issues.
And Move to is kind of isn't it basically create in plus you delete the original?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Great conversation. So thanks everybody for sharing your initial feedback. We're going to get working on a plan here because I do think that there are things that we can do to make it easier to get started and less scary for people to publish and contribute, especially to public spaces. So hopefully something in that direction can help with that. We'll keep you posted. It's helpful to have your feedback. All right. While we were on this community call, I published a blog post that is the culmination of years of thinking on this topic. Would love to get people's thoughts. Please read the post, please share it. It's called Store Value Currencies, More Than Gold. I think the crypto space has been lost, the last, year or so. And I think the market has been choppy, and that's caused people to retreat back to what they know, what they're comfortable with. We've seen this, you could call it return to fundamentals, you could call it the revenue meta. It sounds reasonable, if you're an investor and you're trying to convince LPs that like, hey, this thing, is it's based on fundamentals. It sounds reasonable. The problem is that it's not really what crypto is for. There is a bigger idea here around store of value, and what a good cryptocurrency should be. We have Bitcoin, we have ETH, and really what this does is it breaks it down in a way that I don't think has been well recognized before. And my hope is that if we frame the problem the right way, we can actually get people focused on building the right things in the space. And so I want to share more about this. I'd love for you guys to read this, repost it, get the conversation going, share your thoughts on Twitter. Let me just share the link with you here. It's in the chat. So you post that out. I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Cool. So looking forward for this week, we are going to start opening things up, and we want to get some more curators on board. We want to, continue with the bounties and with the things like we've been doing, but we want to make it easier for people to get started. And so we're going to do that by introducing a simple game that is easy for people to participate in, but helps them get started with this idea of curating knowledge and information. And so we want to make that as simple as possible. And the way that we're going to do that is by making it all around these simple ranked lists, where you can publish a list or you can add to a list, but you can actually be very granular with your preferences because you can, reorder these things and you can actually publish like a ranked list of things. It's a really powerful primitive that could be used for all sorts of contexts, right? You could share your favorite AI models. You could, vote on, we have lots of discussions, here. And, we've looked at, for example, organizing claims, right? For a certain article, and maybe you'd order, what do you think are the most important claims, or what do you think are the best arguments, or you could really use this as a primitive for any type of thing. So it's really powerful, but it's a lot easier for people to do versus actually structuring and publishing new knowledge. So we've made that a really great experience. The team has done a great job with it. And I think we're probably going to be going live with it tomorrow. So please keep an eye out for that. We'd love for your participation, to participate in the voting, to get the word out there, to share it with your friends. It's going to be the easiest way to kind of onboard onto Geo and to start to curate and vote and organize knowledge. And it's going to be an on-ramp, to get people further down the rabbit hole. So a little bit of updates there and things to be excited for the week. Other than that, really excited by the focus areas that we've had. We do now have a new space on the home page. So super excited for that. People who've browsed around have probably seen this US politics is now showing up on the home. So if you haven't upvoted that yet, give that a little upvote. And I think between world affairs, US politics, these spaces we have here, and this new voting game, we've got a lot of exciting things throughout the week. It has been really cool to see. Last week we had a few videos that got posted. Kevin posted this killer video. If you haven't seen it, check out our X page. Love seeing that kind of stuff. So, let's keep it up. We want to get the word out. We want people to hear about what we're doing. There's so much great work that's happening here, and we're going to start sharing more and more of it to get it out there. So, all right, super excited by all the developments. Thank you, everyone, for the great work throughout the week. Thank you for joining us today, and have a really fantastic week, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.